Alright, so in this tutorial I want to go over the importance of Maya's folder structure, its project folder structure. I went over this in the intro class, but even though this is intermediate or slash advanced class, even with that I should go over it. So when you work in Maya and even After Effects, Premiere, software like that, it's good to know. It's very similar. So it crosses over into different software. Meaning that, for example, in Photoshop, when you just start dumping in images and mix and match images, just give it a new file name, save it as a .psd, and you're good. You can just save it and email it or whatever, But with programs like Maya, After Effects, Adobe Premiere, it's very different in the sense that whatever you save, it's not just that. Meaning, well, if you just have if you're just modeling, you're fine, But when your projects become more and more advanced, then you have to know about the file structure and how everything is connected. So, for example, hey, let me just alright, so this is just for a PC, but it works the same on the Mac. So on this computer, in my documents section, we have here Maya, and then that'll be the same on your computer and stuff like that. So this PC, documents, Maya, and right inside of that you have 2023 FBX, which is, I don't know, modules, projects, RS template, scripts. All this other stuff just ignore. Only thing you're gonna look at is projects. As you can see, I already have 8.43 gigabytes. So that's where you go next. Projects, and inside of projects you have default. And inside of default you have all of this: assets, autosave, cache, clips, data, images, movies, render data, scene assembly, blah 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 blah. So when you save your files, by default it should go into scenes. But mine will probably look different from yours because I have multiple projects that I'm designing right now. So in yours you probably will have whatever your project is, .mb, and goes down the list. But for me, since I have multiple projects, boom, I got all this stuff going on. And that, and that, and that, and all of that. And this one, I had set something else as well. Ignore that one for now. So what you're gonna do is you save your file in here. You don't have to make a folder because it's just one project, You don't need to confuse yourself more. So it's just gonna save by default in here, your .mb file. But let's go back one level to default. In default, so the whole point is when you make your textures and you save them as a .jpeg, when you save it as a .jpeg, make sure to save it here under source images. Super important. I briefly go over this in the texture painting tutorials, but I want to also make it more clear, making a separate tutorial like I mentioned. Anyhow, so source images, and here you go. And in source images, let me just source images, I have all this stuff going on. These are all my important images that I plug into the shader, which I show in the tutorials briefly. And I'll be doing much more and more of that. So source images and all these textures. And it gets a little, clogged up and messy. And for you guys to avoid that, when you download your assets off of the Brightspace from the asset library that I handed out, make a folder for it. This one I have grass, mud, textures. I even put what size, 2K, but it's actually like 2K and 4K. So make a folder, name it, and then dump the images in there, like that. And if you're not sure how to make it show the large icon of it or large picture in a PC, you go right click, view, extra large icons. So that's the main thing. And other thing too is that you'll start to notice where you'll see these .tx just randomly appear. Whatever you do, do not delete these. Reason why is that the way that the Arnold rendering the way it works is where whenever you fire up a render, I guess the best way to explain it is that it generates this .tx. I guess if I'm not mistaken, it references it. This uses as a reference, I think. I forgot exactly what, but it links up the texture and to pull it up faster or something along those lines. I remember reading it a long time ago, but that's what it does. So from what I read, I've been told you do not delete these, you leave these alone, because if not, it has to regenerate those things again when you try to fire up another render. So there's that lag or stall time, and then it'll start rendering again. So don't delete these. But I believe these are also what causes Photoshop to not save your images. So for example, if let's say you made your texture, you saved it in source images. You made your textures in Photoshop, you saved it in source images, and then you go into Maya, you plugged it in, and then let me just show something just for visuals. So, you made your texture, again, always AI standard. I also went over how you save it as a favorite. And here's your AI standard. And then also that is over here. Shader, AI standard. Arnold, shader, AI standard. I went over it before, but I'll do it again. So here it is. And your base color, you dump it in there. That's where your texture goes into color here. Not anywhere here. Base, color. Then file. The create render node. Alright, so I made that, which I went over before, but I'll make a separate tutorial explaining these better and more. Anyway, so I made this file node. You get your folder, you pop open that folder, and by default, Maya will take you to source images, like I explained before. And let's say, I don't know, maybe this. You put it there and there. So, that's where it gets connected here from the source image folder. And then when you hit render, right, it renders it out. But before it renders out, there's a little bit of a stall. you'll notice there's a bit of a stall, and then it renders. But then after you start rendering more and more, that stalling effect goes away. It'll start rendering right away. So I'm pretty sure that's what that .tx does for you, so it can render right away. But that initial stall you get is that Maya generating that thing. And again, regarding all of that, back to the point, is that when you try to save it, let's say you're in Photoshop, you know, and you try to, let's say you don't like the image, how it looks in Maya, you need to make a change, you know, and then let's say you don't like something, you need to make a change, and then you go File, Save. It won't let you. I went over this in the tutorial, texturing. I think it was tutorial 5, or was it 4? One of those. So it won't let you. And I'm pretty sure it's because of this thing. But I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure. Anyhow, so it won't let you. And so what do? You go back over here, Arnold, Flush Cache, Textures, and that will allow you to save. But I'm curious if that'll wipe out the .tx files too. I think I'm gonna have to experiment and find out. But anyway, so that's what that is. Kind of went offshoot, but it leads into that anyway. So going back to the file structure and the importance of it for new students or students that need a refresh. Maya 2023, no, Maya projects, default, source images. Don't go into images. I used to go there when I was first learning. Just go into source images and make a folder and dump your thing in there. Make sure to label it so that you understand. And also, for each asset that you make, each asset that you download, don't mix up the textures. Don't mix up the textures. Right, so don't mix up the textures. I had to press pause for a bit to bring this up. So let's say in here, you got all of this, you click that open, and you download it, right? And then you start to go in here, where is it? You download it, you start downloading a whole bunch of stuff. And then you want to just, dump it into source images. I think you should make your how should I guess you could try it both ways. You could just dump it all in here because it has all the names, but I'm just worried if there's any names that's going to be almost the same name by accident from other assets. But just to be safe, you could make a folder, call it stylized grass assets. It's a little bit more tedious, but that's the proper way to do it, just to be sure, and just dump the grass textures in there. I mean, for that specific asset into a folder, like for example, stylized grass assets. So in my show source images, I'll go right click, new folder. I'll name it stylized grass assets, and then I'll dump it in here. That way you know where everything is. Not only that, but when you have a whole list of things, you don't have to start digging through it if and when your textures get disconnected. Let's say you take it home, it's going to be disconnected. You have to go and reconnect it again. Sometimes Maya will be smart enough to know that it's going to be in the source images folder again, but other times it doesn't. But if it doesn't, you just have to relink it once more, and then Maya is smart where it'll relink everything after that. Everything will come together when you encounter the problem and you physically do it, and you'll see. Anyhow, so that's the file folder structure again. Maya, projects, default, and source images. And I mentioned before your dot, your UV that gets generated when you make it in Maya, so that you make that you make that template with a clear wireframe to open in Photoshop. It'll save it into the images folder, which I mentioned before, images. So just be careful not to get confused. All right, I think that's it. So the main places you'll be going to is your scenes and source images, and once in a while your images for your UV snapshot. Sometimes I'll just dump stuff into the assets, you know, but I guess you could kind of make your own judgment call how you want to kind of organize things. But yeah, okay, I think that's it.